Goaltending by any player leaping up to deflect a kick as it passes above the crossbar of a goalpost is prohibited. The referee could award 3 points for a palpably unfair act.
The NFL season is officially in the books, and with an ending that most people are definitely going to go and criticize and blast for one reason or another, because Tom Brady won again. But regardless of that, the NFL season to come will not only be hopefully pandemic-free this go-round, but just as importantly, have even better and less stingy rules to govern everyone. Because that's the thing about the NFL. They're not afraid to change the rules, nor are they afraid to change them because of the actions of a singular person. Allow us to show you 10 NFL players responsible for rule changes. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 10. Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer was a rising star in the NFL during the 2005 NFL season and just secured a first-round bye for the Cincinnati Bengals. During the divisional playoff series against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Palmer threw a touchdown pass to Chad Johnson on the first possession. Unfortunately, Steelers defensive tackle Kimo von Oelhoffen tackled Palmer below the knee after he threw it and fractured his ACL and MCL, ending his season and the Bengals' playoff hopes. In addition, Tampa Bay quarterback Brian Griese endured an injury that season in a similar fashion. Therefore, the NFL decided to implement a rule after the season that prevented defensive players from hitting the quarterback at or below the knee. In fact, the rules became even more stringent after the 2008 NFL season when Tom Brady suffered a season-ending ACL and MCL injury because of a similar incident. Luckily for Brady, he was able to recover and win more Super Bowls, including the most recent one. But Palmer and Griese were never the same, and you could argue that for Palmer especially, his career would have been very different had he not gotten injured in that playoff game. Number 9. Morris Stroud. Morris Stroud is known as the tallest tight end in NFL history and one of the tallest players in NFL history at 6'10". Usually that height is reserved for the NBA, but not in Stroud's case. Although he didn't have a hugely successful NFL career, he was well known for his special teams play as a field goal blocker. However, unlike field goal blockers who rush the kicker and attempt to swat at the ball, Stroud would stand by the field goal post and attempt to block it when it was going through the uprights. As a result, the NFL decided to create the rule known as the Stroud Rule, which states, goaltending by any player leaping up to deflect a kick as it passes above the crossbar of a goalpost is prohibited. The referee could award 3 points for a palpably unfair act. On one hand, that rule absolutely makes sense, because it's basically goaltending, another NBA thing. But on the other hand, how many players can actually try and enact this action? Exactly. But hey, a rule is a rule. Number 8. Ty Law. Ty Law was one of the best cornerbacks in the early 2000s and is well known for being Peyton Manning's second favorite receiver during the Patriots-Colts playoff rivalry of the same period. However, he was also well known for his physical play against receivers at the line of scrimmage. In fact, the NFL decided to strictly enforce the 5-yard illegal contact rule after the Colts complained of his aggressive play during the 2003 NFL playoffs. This rule is one of the most strictly enforced rules in the NFL right now, and for good reason, because defensive players will try and take any and every advantage that they can in order to go and make things better for themselves and their team. So while they think this may not be fair, it is in fact Ty's Law. Number 7. Mel Blount. Mel Blount is arguably one of the greatest cornerbacks in NFL history who was part of the ferocious Steel Curtain defense in Pittsburgh. In fact, at 6'3" and 205 pounds, he absolutely abused opposing wide receivers to the point that few receivers ever had the chance to receive against him. Which on one hand was great for the Steelers, as that meant that they were able to have a solid defense no matter who placed up against them. But some people saw this as a bit unfair for the other team. Therefore, the NFL decided to impose a rule that prevented any defensive player from jamming an offensive player 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. If the defensive player failed to do so, then he'd be charged with defensive pass interference. The rule, known as the Mel Blount Rule, has dramatically had a huge influence on the opening of the passing game. If you can't tell, this was the rule that Ty Law helped reinforce decades later. Number 6. Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning has arguably one of the most efficient no-huddle offenses in the NFL. However, the NFL created a rule in 2009 that placed the umpire 12 feet off the line of scrimmage instead of 5 to 7 feet. Therefore, this increased the amount of time it took for the umpire to gauge the spot of the ball as well as get into position. Manning got so frustrated with it that he drew 2 penalties during the 2009 preseason while trying to do his hurry-up offense. The NFL announced that it was a way to help decrease the amount of collisions with umpires, but it also reduced the effectiveness of hurry-up offenses such as the Colts and the Patriots. And had this been included during the legendary Four Falls of Buffalo, where Jim Kelly ran the offense in a hurry-up style, it would have heavily affected them too. Teams have found a way around it in modern times, but it still lingers in its own way. Number 5. Keyshawn Johnson. Johnson is arguably one of the most outspoken wide receivers in the NFL, being known for his famous statement, "Give me the damn ball." In this case, Johnson decided to tell the NFL to give me the damn number. When he was drafted number 1 overall by the New York Jets in the 1996 NFL Draft, wide receivers were restricted to the numbers 80 through 89. However, he opted to wear number 19 despite the restrictions and would have to pay fines for doing so. In 2004, because of the numbers 80 through 89 being retired by NFL teams and this incident, the NFL decided to allow wide receivers to wear numbers 10 through 19 in addition to 80 through 89. Some would see this as a capitulation move by the NFL, but if you really think about it, this was an arbitrary rule that doesn't have an overall effect on the game, so why not? Number 4. Brett Favre and Emmitt Smith. Brett Favre is well known for collecting nearly every NFL passing record. However, he's also known for his Super Bowl celebration on January 26, 1997. After scoring a touchdown, Favre exuberantly took off his helmet and sprinted off the field with a joyous face. Unfortunately, during the 1997 NFL offseason, the NFL decided to ban players from removing their helmets on the field, especially during a touchdown celebration. Although Brett Favre's celebration is the most notable, it's commonly referred to as the Emmitt Smith rule, because of the running back's habit of taking off his helmet after every touchdown. And should you be curious? Yes, this rule is still enforced today. Number 3. Tom Dempsey. Tom Dempsey is tied for one of the longest field goals in NFL history at 63 yards. The best part is that he did it with a deformed right foot. Unfortunately, the media and other players believed that he had an unfair advantage with his specially designed shoe. Thus, after much debate, the NFL passed a rule known as the Tom Dempsey Rule in 1997 that states, any shoe that's worn by a player with an artificial limb on his kicking leg must have a kicking surface that conforms to that of a normal kicking shoe. Petty? Yeah. But on a certain level, you can see why they added this rule. Number 2. Dick Lane. Dick Night Train Lane holds the NFL record for most interceptions in career at 81 picks. During the 1950s, the NFL implemented plastic helmets with face masks to be worn by all players. Unfortunately, Lane was the biggest culprit of face masking his opponent. He would frequently grab the face mask of the offensive players and tackle them to the ground by it. Therefore, the NFL decided to implement the face mask penalty in the 1950s to help prevent it, which is another of the most called penalties in the NFL today, and one that, despite it being decades old, players on both sides of the ball continue to do it. Number 1. Nickel Roby-Coleman. You may not remember his name, but you definitely remember the play, because a few years back, the New Orleans Saints seemed destined for the Super Bowl and were facing the LA Rams. The Rams were putting up a good fight, but the Saints were a few yards away from a touchdown and sealing the game. Then, as Saints receiver Tyquan Lewis was going for the ball, Rams player Nickel Roby-Coleman blasted him before the ball ever touched him. No flag was thrown, and the Saints lost the game. The Saints, the fans, and the NFL as a whole were furious about this but refused to change the outcome or redo the game, which they had power to implement. As a result, the NFL next season made it possible to challenge a potential or called pass interference play. It lasted one season, and then they were done with it. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at the times when players got the NFL to change the rules and make big changes to the game as a result? Were you surprised by some of the big names that were on this list? Did you think that some of them weren't responsible for such changes? Do you think another change might be coming because of the previous season? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.